Hi, I'm Michael Causey, Editor-in-Chief with ACRP. Thank you for joining us for ACRP TV, our spotlight today on budgeting challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic. We've got a great guest with us today. Al Peters is the co-CEO of ClinX. Al, I'm going to first ask you to talk a little bit about your background, and then let's dive in to talk about, you and I are speaking on May 12th. A few states are beginning to tentatively inch toward some sort of new normal. Elective procedures are coming back in some states. We have no idea what this recovery is going to look like, if it's even begun, but it does seem like things are starting to move in a better direction. In some places, a little bit. I'm being very restrained here. But let me first ask you to talk a little bit about your own background, and then let's jump in and talk about the always difficult issue of budgeting clinical trials, even more complicated now with COVID. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me. Very excited to be on, and there's definitely a lot to talk about right now in regards to clinical trials and how things have changed and the impact to the site and to the patient. My background, I came from the site side, so I worked at a clinical research site for many years. I started in regulatory, and then I became a coordinator and managed a whole bunch of trials at the site level. And then before I knew it, I was more on the management side. So really dealing with all the different moving components at the site level, whether it's helping with manage the physicians or the budgets or the clinical side. So my background comes from the site side, and it's definitely helped me with my position at ClinX, which is to really try to set up a new category of business that supports the sites, supports industry, so the CROs and the sponsors, and supports the patient, really by bringing together a different type of workflow that is more efficient for everybody. So
great. Well, I really appreciate your time. This is very timely. I think hopefully this is going to help a lot of people who are struggling I'm talking about the business side right now, on the budget side with clinical trials. It's never easy to budget a clinical trial, but we are in unprecedented times. So you're reading about the airline industry struggling, entertainment industry struggling, restaurant industry struggling. Our industry is struggling as well. So let's talk about maybe near term. First off, what kind of impact are you seeing COVID have on budgeting? What kind of, if you could talk to someone right now who's in the middle of all this, and I guess in a sense we are, what kind of advice would you give them as they're putting together budgets, either for trials they're having to rework on now, or looking to the very near future?
Yeah, I mean, I think first to create a business around something, right? You have to first understand what the business is, and the reality is the site business right now has changed. So to figure out how to revise the budget, you have to figure out how we had to change the workflow to execute on the clinical trial. And it's come down to a few things. First of all, it's getting the study drug, or having the ability to complete the study visit at the patient's home or remotely via telehealth. Has been two ways that sites have had to implement new workflows to allow for the trial to continue. Some of the other things have been just really the heavy lift on the COVID-19 side. So, really verifying that patients were not exposed prior to coming to the site, or including it really into their recruitment process, so they understand their exposure prior to coming into the study. So all the different activities and time that's needed to now execute on the trial is really step one, right? So now we have an idea of what we have to do. Step two is now monetizing that, or maybe that's not the right word. It's really correlating the budget and the time that we're reimbursed into the budget around the new workflow. And I think it's broken down to a couple different things. Right now, traditional budgets, you're reimbursed based on the visits that are completed. And within the visits, you have the procedures that are completed. So first of all, the procedures are changing, right, in the budget. So we have to do things like clean the patient rooms or again, additional questionnaires for the patients. So that time needs to be included into the per visit,
Let me jump in.
into the per visit budget.
I want to jump in. Yeah, let me, because obviously it seemed to me, I mean, I cover this industry, but I've never done it, but it would seem to me that there's a real danger for sites and clinical trial personnel to underestimate how much time it takes to do these things, because some of them are relatively new, or the amount of effort needed to do them is so much increased since COVID. I mean, is that a real threat? Is that a real concern, you think, or should it be?
No, it has. I mean, the effort has increased, the time has increased, but the time's changed, right? So what we're recommending our sites to do is, it's not really about just increasing the budget, right? You have to sit down and draw out, okay, what is the new design of the trial execution? Okay, now what is the new design on the budget? And one of the more significant components of the budget changes that we're seeing is on the logistics side. So that the site is having to manage study drug to the patient, or the nurse to the patient's home, or them to the patient's home. There's more of a logistical management side. The roles changed, and that changes the budget, right? It's more from more of a time and expense type model from the visit procedure model. So we're working with a lot of our sites now to really understand the logistical side, and then how to correlate that into the framework of their budget.
Now, what about the long-term impacts? I know this is a tough question, and we're all trying to figure out, where we go from here as an industry. Obviously, a lot of that depends on external factors we have no control over, pandemic spread, economic issues, et cetera. But I guess my question is COVID-19's long-term impact on budgeting. I mean, do you think there are going to be significant ripple effects for a long time? Do you think budgets will be done differently a year from now as a result of this?
Yeah, I mean, significant. I wouldn't say it would be significant, but they're definitely going to change, right? Like the behavior in clinical trials that's being adopted right now will allow for quicker innovation in the space. So the ability to offer the hybrid trial, which is, the patient can stay home and the trial will come to them, that's being adopted faster now, and it is more efficient in many ways. And so the budget side of that framework will be accelerated. We also are seeing again that the current methodology of the budget, where it's very much around the per visit basis, it may continue to change into more of a service model of a budget, where the logistical side is added. So maybe a site will start to cover, for example, a geographic area of patients instead of just the patients that are coming to their facility. And the reasoning around that is the quality of and the safety that the site brings at the coordinator level and at the PI level. It's really it's one of those things that can't be matched in any other way. So having the home health care go to the site, that's great, but the level of expertise that's needed, really we believe is something that's going to remain at the site level. So we think the site of the future definitely will still have the brick and mortars and the traditional visits done at the site, but it also may start to expand out into more of a service-based model that covers a geographic area.
Excellent. We've been speaking here with Al Peters. He's the co-CEO of ClinX. You've been watching ACRP TV, our spotlight on budgeting during these unprecedented times. Al, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your input and your help. Very valuable, I think, for people, particularly right now, as we're all scrambling to deal and grapple with the new normal. Thank you so much for joining us, Al.
Thanks for having me.